AI is making its way into home care, helping improve efficiency, predict falls, assist caregivers, and even produce companionship. But is this the future of better care, or are we heading toward a system that replaces the human touch with algorithms? Today, we're breaking it all down. We'll separate fact from fiction, hear from experts on AI's real impact in home care, and put AI to the test in some high-stakes scenarios. Let's get into it. Okay, so for this first segment in this AI episode, we're gonna read some headlines off and decide, is this real? Is this our AI future? Or is this fake? We're not quite there yet. You ready to get started?
Let's give it a try.
Okay, and then we'll talk a little bit about what each one means. So first headline, new AI robot provides emotional support to home care patients. Is it real or is it fake? What do you think?
Wow, this is a tough one. I'm going to go with real.
It is. And now I don't think that AI robots are going to replace our home care workforce anytime soon, but let's talk about some of the issues that this brings up. So number one, remote monitoring. I know this is already being used by a lot of home health agencies. Can you talk a little bit about that and how it's augmenting the care that's provided?
Yeah, I mean, the concept of remote monitoring actually isn't all that new. We've seen an explosion in everything from, monitoring vital signs, people's monitoring weights in certain diseases and conditions, oximetry, connecting blood glucose measurements for people with diabetes to their care providers, monitoring, symptom scales, questionnaires, are you in pain, rating pain scales. These are some of the things that we can do remotely. Also, there's a lot going on in device monitoring as well. This really in the cardiovascular care world has become an important part of heart care for people with rhythm disorders.
Okay, and what about the other side of things? So I think remote monitoring, we're used to that. We see how it's already supported care delivery. The companionship piece of this, I think that's where people start to clam up a little bit, and probably for good reason. What do you think? Is this helping? Is this possible? Is it only supplemental? How is companionship a part of this conversation?
Yeah, I'm not going to write it off. Okay, I think. Listen, I'm a humanist. I think the role of that connection that people get in terms of just talk, the therapeutic benefits of the communication are really strong. And that said, I have seen some demos of virtual agents and assistants where the level of communication is quite sophisticated. And I don't know if I'd call it companionship so much, but those check-ins and making sure everything's okay. I think that those type of sort of technologically driven interactions are going to increase, and we are going to find that some of them are helpful.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You see all the headlines right now about people that are anthropomorphizing the tech and like becoming, I don't know, best friends or having an emotional partnership with the tech. I was just listening to a podcast the other day about a new thing that they found where if you talk to the AI in a way like where you're showing your anxiety to AI, it will respond with its own anxiety. Like obviously it itself doesn't have anxiety, but it responds in a way that is cognizant of a human that's anxious. So I bring that up just to say, we're also going to have to train these virtual companions to respond in the way that a trained therapist or physician or whoever it is would need to respond, which is a really interesting thing to think about, that the AI could take on the behavior of the patient that it's serving. So a wild west out there, we'll see.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And I just think that it's something to watch. That I mean, some of the things that we worry about in care at home are loneliness, isolation. I mean, these are actually life-threatening problems that people who are disconnected, they suffer and things can go poorly. Obviously, there's a lot of loss and grief with serious illness and with aging in many respects. And so, having new ways to interact is worth paying attention to. Again, I'm not going to say that these are going to replace the need for human sort of natural interaction, but if it can help somebody's day go a little smoother or get people's mind in a place that's better and they're able to soothe themselves, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next headline. AI predicts when seniors will fall with 92% accuracy.
Yeah, I can see that happening. Predictive analytics are getting stronger, and certainly it's an important topic. Falls risk, is one of the big barriers to safe aging.
Yeah, well, you're right. It's real. Can we talk a little bit about how predictive analytics are used right now by providers? I think falls, you kind of touched on one of the big ones to help prevent fall risk. But how else is it being integrated, and can it speak with other pieces of patient technology like EMRs, things like that?
Yeah, I think we've seen, in care at home in particular, we've seen a lot of growth in the use of predictive analytics. A lot of it around quality improvement, trying to identify who is at risk for hospitalization. So these are tools that might run on top of the electronic record system using some of the patient data, everything from their medicines to symptom scale scores to some of the things that we check off during our clinical documentation. Predicting risk of hospitalization, one of the interesting things in hospice is a tool where they're looking at the likelihood of a person potentially entering into the final days of life, and trying to use that as a way to make sure that we triage enough care to people that when they need it most. And so that's a hospice-based model. Also in the home healthcare world, one of the interesting questions becomes, are there people that might be more appropriate to care for in hospice, meaning that they're getting home health, but their circumstances, their medical condition, their needs would make it better for them to get care in hospice, and analytic tools that look at that particular problem have become more popular. So I see that being just growing in terms of the predictive analytics. The falls risk is of critical importance, of course, like you mentioned, because it's one of the major public health problems of aging.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I had no idea that hospices were using that to help predict when you should make visits and when might be the last days of life. Obviously, it will always be a supplement to the expert oversight of a physician or a provider, but that's a really interesting tool. Looking to stay ahead of the curve in home care finance? Don't miss the 2025 National Alliance for Care at Home Financial Summit, happening this July. It's your chance to learn from industry experts, dive deep into reimbursement strategies, compliance, and tech innovation, and build lasting connections. Visit allianceforcareathome.org to secure your seat. Now let's get back to the show. So with these predictive models, is there any concern about security, compliance, kind of patient data protection?
Yeah, absolutely. As technology has exploded in healthcare and care at home, the cyber risk issues, only increase. Now, certainly, all healthcare providers that are engaged in using these type of tools are concerned about following the HIPAA guidelines in terms of how protected health information is shared or transported. But no doubt, one of the things that we've talked about in our conversations is reimbursement. And one of the things that providers need more and more reimbursement to cover are their cyber risks, the tools that they have to mitigate risks, everything from firewalls to alert systems. I'm not an expert in IT security, but I certainly understand that care at home, for it to be successful and for us to use these new tools, requires increasing defenses and technologies to support the risk protection.
Yeah, we definitely need to be thinking and talking more about that. That's very interesting. Okay, speaking of the future state, by 2035, AI will completely replace home health aides. True or fake?
Yeah, that's fake. We're not going to replace home health aides in the next decade. They are just such critical resources. The hands-on care. I don't see AI helping somebody who's paralyzed have a shower, or hand feeding someone that needs that type of care. I think that AI may be in the background helping that caregiver be as effective as they can. And I think that AI may play other roles, but completely replace the aide, I don't see it happening.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a dystopic future for replacing physical touch with like metal arms to feed you. So I think I'm on board with that one. It's definitely a fake headline.
Yeah.
Okay, last headline. We can spend a little bit of time on some other potential benefits, but robotic-based home care is actually more human. Real or fake? It's a tricky one.
Yeah, I'm going to say that it could be true. Okay, it could be true. I think there's a chance in certain circumstances, robots could make make us more human. If what the robots are doing is making sure that we're safe, that we're communicating, that we have check-ins. I've seen some robots with form factors that are like a stuffed animal or a baby, and you kind of relate to them. And so in those type of circumstances, maybe there is a warmth or a humanizing aspect to the interaction. Also, if the robots help the caregivers, remember our caregivers are so stressed. Our caregivers are so burdened, whether we're talking about family caregivers or the professional aid workforce, they need help. If we find tools that help them get through their day, that's a big deal, and that's definitely humanizing.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting questions that headline brings up is it possible to be both pro-human and pro-tech? And I think we kind of have to be in our care at home space, just thinking about the strained workforce that we're working through right now and the increases in that strain that we project to happen over the future. We need to be able to utilize these technologies to help supplement the care that we provide, because it's just not going to cut it the way that we're doing it now. So I think it's actually like an imperative. We have to be both pro-human and pro-tech.
Yeah, the tech is enabling care at home. Actually, if we think about care at home as being a humanistic intervention, as an example of showing people that they're cared for and that they're worth remaining independent and part of their families and their communities. A lot of that care is just not possible without tech. Even some simple things. I mean, one of the things when I started doing a lot of home care that was really important for me was just having GPS help me figure out where I was going. And I remember when I started doing a lot of home visits, some docs and nurses that had done it for decades gone by said that they gave up on home care because it was just so inefficient for them. They'd have to take out the map, and at night or early in the morning, have the flashlight out in the car trying to figure out where they're going. And you need to stay connected to your office and your team. And if you didn't have that type, even just cell technology has made a huge impact on care at home.
That's actually crazy for me to think about. As the resident Gen Z staffer of the Alliance, I don't remember working without a cell phone, but I do remember going to soccer games and having to print out the maps from MapQuest. And that was horrible. I do think in some ways it's hamstrung me because I have the worst sense of direction ever because I've always relied on technology, but at least that frees us up to focus on the things that we really need to focus on. So I like to spin it that way.
Yeah, it's probably me showing my age a bit that diving into the innovation of mobile technology.
Who knew?
But it's real.
Yeah.
I think I was one of the first docs to. I worked at Cleveland Clinic, and we were an Epic shop, and Epic was built as the electronic medical record in the office in the hospital. And I actually took that out using, I don't know if you've ever heard of an air card. I don't know if that term
Honestly, no.
is ever, an air card. It's like, a plug into your computer that provides a cellular connection. And that was common at one point in time. But, I used Epic, out in the home and field. And, that was successful.
Yeah.
It's not always, the bandwidth hasn't always been there, Alyssa. I know it seems like just anywhere you go, you can fire that phone up. But, I many times out on home visits in rural areas, even parts of the suburb, they're like dead zones and you can't get connection. So as that increases, our mobility, and this is big for workforce management and logistics, has gotten better.
Yeah, no, that actually is a great point. Like that bandwidth and technology issues are still pressing throughout the U.S. today. And what can we do to make sure that we don't leave behind those communities that might not be as technologically up to speed? I want to touch on a few other potential benefits before we close this segment. So I know greater staff efficiency comes up a lot and can manifest in a lot of different ways. I think care scheduling is one of those. I think assistance in charting is one of those. Can you speak a little bit to what other ways that AI can can support efficiency for the workforce.
Yeah, I mean, all we are people caring for people. That's the core of care at home. And as we've talked about in some other conversations we've had, there's not enough caregivers, and they've got a lot on their plate. And so, the more that we can help support, scheduling being efficient so that there's less drive time for people in between visits, the more that we can pair and match the right clinicians and the right caregivers with the right patients, and so that there's good matchmaking in terms of what people need, and will give them the best possible care. That's important. Certainly, I know we'll get into this more, but the whole area of documentation, that's a big strain on the workforce, a lot of big time sink. And so tools that, simplify documentation, automated voice recognition, those type of things are really going to be welcome, time freer uppers, for lack of a better word, for the workforce. And the only thing I would say about all this is I'm sure a lot of the frontline workers, when they hear us talking, they are a little nervous, so they think they can squeeze more juice out of this rock, And I think that there's a balance there, okay? Because there are things that are wasting time, and we need that capacity. And at the same time, we also need our caregivers' lives just to be better. Just to be better and more sustainable, so that they're able to relate to their families and enjoy life, and their lives be sustainable. And so, some of these efficiencies maybe we can give to the system to help make the system more efficient. But some of these improvements, we've got to just give back to our caregivers so that their lives are better.
I'm really glad that you brought that up. I think that's critical. And another thing to make sure that we do when we get to the point of implementation with these technologies is adequately train the workforce. I mean, you have people of all generations working together, and you need to make sure that everyone is equipped with the right tools to be successful, so you don't have people leaving the profession because they feel like technology is outpacing them. We can't lose their expertise and their wisdom and the valuable insight that they've gained. And I've seen that happen. So that's a great point to bring up. Just a few other important safeguards I want to make sure that we touch on. Number one, this is an interesting thing to think about, but the algorithm for the AI needs to be updated, right? So if the last training data is from October 2024, and then you have a new study that came out in December of 2024, then that algorithm might not be trained on the latest data. And so it might not be giving the best output. So just to say that the input has to be as high quality as possible in order for us to get the best output.
I agree.
And we're moving at a breakneck pace a lot of the time. So it's important that research is up to date. And the other thing, just to say, I think we all know this, but like systems can make mistakes. We hear about AI hallucinating all the time. This is all to be implemented with oversight. So this is not like an AI is going to run rampant and start doing everything for us. We need to have a discerning eye when we use these tools and be trained, again, that staff training, on how to use them in a way where we still feel confident in the output, but we aren't just taking it as gospel and running with it.
And not to contradict you, but to point the other side, that AI may become very important in staff training.
Yeah.
So identifying learning needs and helping shepherd people through learning modules, and curating content that we want to get to our workforce in different ways. AI could be critically important for just the process of learning in general.
Yeah, that's a great point. And even
you see, I think AI would be doing a better conversation than you're doing right now.
You brought it right back to me. Humans, I mean, we talk about AI making mistakes. Yeah. Humans make mistakes. I mean, we could also improve our output by, combining the two together, because think about driving. I mean, yes, it's scary to have a Waymo car or whatever they're called, like driving around without a human driver, but we know they're far safer. It's hard to wrap your mind around that, but humans make just as many mistakes. And so, I mean, actually they make far more mistakes. So finding out how to bring these two things together in symphony to work well and best serve patients, and also like you said, the day-to-day of the provider is going to be critical.
Yeah. I mean, automation, safety, preventing harm, is one of the things we should be optimistic about. There's a more and more sophisticated things happening in care at home. I mean, think about as we bring, hospital level care home. We have people with, serious symptoms that are being managed in end of life settings at home, or we're trying to substitute for hospital care at home, which is patient centered and it's cost effective. But we're managing infusion medications in the home setting. People have needs for labs. Medications have to happen at certain times. There are things that are potentially risky, that where there are errors and problems in our healthcare system even today. And can AI tools help us avoid some of those problems?
Yeah, I think it's a good place to end. AI is already here. I think it's like the global market size is projected to increase tenfold from 2022 to 2029. So we have to continue to stay ready and stay vigilant as healthcare providers. But the change is here now, and how do we tap into that? Okay, for our next segment in this episode, and before Dr. Landers and I get too far outside of our depth, we're bringing in an expert in AI and technology as it applies to the home care world, Tom Maxwell. Tom currently serves as the co-founder and chairman for Maxwell Healthcare Associates, which provides comprehensive post-acute care consulting services, including guidance and optimizing operations through the use of technology. Tom also serves as a board member for Metalogics, the only data science company focused exclusively on home health and hospice. Prior to his current positions, Tom served as the chief operating officer for Home Care Homebase, an EMR I'm sure some of you have heard of, for over a decade. Tom, welcome to the Who Cares podcast.
Thanks for having me, and great to see everybody. Dr. Landers, thank you for inviting me to do this.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So I think we could spend the entire segment recounting your previous roles and accomplishments, but I do like to start with kind of the journey that got you there. So can you share a bit about your background as it pertains to what led you to focus on the role of technology in home care?
Yeah, it's a really interesting background. So I served in the Navy as a Navy hospital corpsman for 10 years. When I got out of the Navy, I got a job at a little company called Millbrook, which is a practice management and EMR company for doctors, nurse practitioners, and PAs. Love the business. We started building technology that doctors wanted to use, and we're talking back to 2000. At that time, GE came in and bought the company, and it became GE Centricity Physician Office. I was the vice president of operations and customer services there. My CFO was a guy by the name of Steve, and Steve was April Anthony's partner and boss at PricewaterhouseCoopers way back when when April was doing consulting back then. That's kind of how she got her start. Well, she was trying to get Steve Myers to be the CFO for what now is in Habit, what used to be Encompass and Advanced Home Care Management. Steve said no, but he gave her my name, and so she hired me. So my first day to go work at Home Care Homebase was at the NOC conference, and so I actually attended the annual meeting at NOC the very first day, and I didn't know anything. My job was to hand out Cracker Jacks and water, and that's what got me into it. And she hired me as vice president of operations. And about 6 months later, I got promoted to the chief operating officer and served there from 2005 to 2016. It's a really fun run.
So you go way back with the association space, and we're thankful for that connection.
Yeah, I think I've been to pretty much most of the NOC conferences in my career. I continue to still go. So from 2005 to now, I've been to every one of them.
Our conferences, they can be, they're incredibly informative, but they can also be a big party. We're doing our annual conference down in New Orleans this year, and we're doing it right on the back of Halloween. And so if you haven't been to Bourbon Street on Halloween and you're interested in care at home and kind of a good party, it might be the thing to go to.
Yeah, it's pretty scary, but that'll be a lot of fun. I can't imagine being in New Orleans at Halloween, but I'm a big fan of costumes and all that stuff. So we'll have to see what comes out of that. That'll be a blast. I'm glad you guys chose New Orleans. It's always fun to have a conference in October.
And Tom, just because of the topic here, I just want to be clear. We're talking to you, and you're not a deep fake, right? We did all the authentication, right? We've got the real thing here.
Yeah, you get the real thing. There's no AI that can create. It would probably be way prettier if they created me with AI. I promise you that. Yeah, so let's follow the career a little bit more. So I, in 2016, left Home Care Homebase and retired 77 days. Physically, I wanted to retire. I wanted to play golf, go fishing, do all those kind of things. Jennifer, my wife, Jennifer Maxwell, is the CEO of Maxwell Healthcare Associates. She retired. Back then, she used to run the Minnesota State Association for Home Care and Hospice. We actually met through NOC. So Val Almaderis.
Yeah. So those meetings, our meetings, it's not even a good party, good education. You might even meet the love of your life.
That's right. That's right. So
That was
Val,
Jennifer Maxwell. Holy cow! Wow, beautiful.
yeah, Val invited us to be on the NOC nomination selection committee. That's where we met. And so Um, she retired. She was going to be a yoga instructor. I was going to be a fisherman and a golfer. It was terrible. 77 days of that. She's like, "Hey, fatty, you got to get off the couch and go do something besides play golf and drink beer." And so we started Maxwell Healthcare Associates, and mostly we started because all of our customers were calling us and asking us to help them. Right? You wrote the software. You were involved in our software and our implementations. Come help us. And so that grew really fast. We didn't really want to be a big consulting company. I think we have 140 consultants now. Back then, we wanted to be a small boutique, have fun. It's grown really fast. And then from there, this is Nana. I don't know if you guys know the Nana story. That was my Nana. Nana was on service at Inhabit Home Health at Compass back then, and she passed away. And the chaplain recognized really quickly that she was dying. And so I was on the golf course. Shocker, I play a lot of golf. And my dad texted me and said, "Your grandma's about to call you. Answer the phone." I'm like, "Oh, this is serious." And so I answered the phone, and she said, "Hey, the chaplain recognizes that I may be on my last days. I want to just say goodbye." And so we spent 45 minutes. Of course, I pulled over, and the guys kept going, and we spent 45 minutes, and I got to say goodbye to her. It was amazing. It was the greatest thing ever. Very blessed for that chaplain. That got us into like, how do we make that experience happen for everybody? And that's when we created Muse. So Brian Mosier, who was the original CTO of Metalogics, came over, sat down with me and said, "Hey, let's create something in hospice." And I said, "Brian, I have this experience that I just went through. I want to be able to use data to predict when Nanas or Papas," we always call them Nanas because of my Nana personalizes it. So when Nana's getting close to passing away, how do we make sure that we, one, identify that, and two, make sure that we inform the family, communicate. We get a chaplain there, get social workers there, more aid visits, more nursing visits, more care for Nana as she's beginning to transition. And we wanted to be able to use AI to do that. And when Brian and I finished the model, we started seeing 90, 92, 93% accurate. When we said Nana was going to pass away in the next 7 to 10 days, all we're looking for is she had a major change in condition. She's going to pass away in the next 7 to 10 days. We were 93% accurate. Guess what? When we missed, we usually missed by a couple of days. So Nana would live 12 days instead of 10 days or 9 days. And so by informing the hospice and informing the family and being able to really put that real world prediction in there to say, "Hey, do something different for this Nana. Make sure you're calling the family members. Make sure you're bringing the right people in, chaplain, social worker, aides, and all that. We can provide a lot more care, better care, and care more often." That's what we like to say.
Tom, I was always, for one, as a physician, it's always been a source of humility in terms of prognostication, right? I mean, we have our tools, we have our training, and there's some things that we use to try to give the best possible assessment and advice in medicine. I was really impressed, over a decade ago when I saw the first iterations of the Metalogics tool supporting people in home health getting care in the right place. That if somebody appeared to be more appropriate for hospice care or needing some type of palliative intervention, just the ability for that data analytics tool to help is impressive. And then, like with Muse, what you're saying, this kind of ability as we've gotten more sensitive to making sure that in hospice care that people get the care on the days they need it most, and predicting with the needs. Just what you've seen. I've seen this change people's lives. Now, I don't remember us calling this 9, 10, 12, 15 years ago AI. Maybe that was I was thinking, oh, this is big data in healthcare, or new analytics tools. Is AI and what we're seeing with AI something different or enhanced on top of what these kind of things are? And what's the difference, and where is it going?
Yeah, so the original Metalogics product, and I'm the chairman, or was the chairman, non-executive chairman of the board of Metalogics. Now I just sit on the board and investor in the business as well, and I help them a ton. They had a product called Care, and Care really looked at the Oasis data set, and the goal was to say how sick is Nana and how much care should we provide Nana. And we have another product. They had another product called Bridge back then, and Bridge was, is Nana in the right care setting? So home health to hospice, but those were just giant algorithms. Really, that's all it was an algorithm that looked at the Oasis data set and then tried to predict that. Now with large language models, with real AI, with a company called Snowflake, where we can process more data, we have millions and millions and millions of records that we can now compare Nana to all the other Nanas. And with the new AI, we can now become way more accurate. We can do better things on predictions. So Bridge, the original product that bridged home health patients to hospice, is now called Transitions. And Transitions really looks at, not only are we looking at the same Oasis data set, because it's a good common, clean data set, but we can look at everything in that record. We can use AI to securely, of course, with all the HIPAA rules around it, we can securely read notes and pull data feeds out of those notes. And so instead of just what used to be called NLP or natural language processing, now we're reading entire sentences. Think of it as the tree is brown or the tree is green. A brown tree is a starving tree that needs more nutrients. A green tree is a very healthy tree. So by reading this sentence or reading what a nurse writes into a chart, patient is bedbound, surrounded by her family, appetite suppressed, all those things, we can really gather that data, and now we can do predictions around that. And so we took that with the Medalogix Bridge product and converted it. Historically, you had to have most people call them a transition coordinator, guide. They have names for these people that do this. They get all this record and it triggers and says, this patient's most likely appropriate for hospice. Go review the entire record. Well, now with AI, I can also give you all the factors. Nana's bedbound. Nana's vital signs are suppressed. Her respirations are down. Her blood pressure's down. Her appetite's suppressed. I can now start looking at all the factors that are common to a hospice patient. Her disease is progressing. She has multiple diagnosis codes. She's had more than one fall. She's all these kind of things like that help us be able to predict. And so AI is not just, hey, predict this. It's also give me the tools and surround me with the data. So I don't have to go review the whole chart. I have to go look at visit 1 through visit 17.
I mean, that whole process, not just the predictive aspect of it, like, making sure that we understand our nanas and that we understand what the needs are, and where they are at in their trajectory, but also, some of the documentation and paperwork issues. I got to imagine, because we spend so much time, trying to figure out how to justify, for our payment and compliance systems that the care is appropriate. And we got, a lot of people spending a lot of time clicking screens and swiping screens, and, hopefully the days of actually, pen and paper paperwork are gone. But that type of activity, I would think the synthesis that's possible, from some of these tools is going to be impressive. Now, there are probably some compliance things and issues on the regulatory front we're going to have to work out with our partners in government over time on some of those topics. But that's critically important, for all types of care. And that whole piece, that care delivery, the assessment, predictive modeling, getting people the right care. I see that. Any other areas you see? I remember once, I don't remember the details of the conversation, but I remember once like having a light bulb go off in my head when I was talking to you about looking at like the workforce, and could we use AI to better understand our workforce in the future? Is that one of the other areas you still see as promising, or what other parts of the care at home future do you see AI playing a big role?
Yeah, I invested in a company called Levo, which built a product that essentially will text your employees and how they respond to the text, the answers that they do, how quick they respond, all these kind of things will give you a prediction of whether you're a happy employee or an upset employee. People don't leave their jobs for money; they leave their jobs because of their boss. And so, if we can surface those employees up, not just back office staff, nursing staff, visit staff, all of those. If we can surface, hey, this person's having a challenge, maybe we can go address the challenge. Think about it like this. So I look at you on a daily basis and I say you start your day every day at 8:00. And all of a sudden the data shows me signal that you're now starting your day at 9:30. Something changed. Maybe your kids just went back to school and now your day changed. Or maybe you're spending the first hour and a half looking for a job. Can I address that? Can I say, something's changed in your signal. As your boss or as your manager or as your a coworker, I want to know, is there something going on that I can correct? Maybe you got married, maybe you got divorced, maybe something changed in your life that we can help solve. And if I know that, then I'm not trying to get personal with you, but maybe I can do something about your day better. So there's all kinds of these tools that are coming out that'll actually predict happiness in employees, and then from there we can then hopefully get you to the right person to talk to. So one of the things we've been working with St. Croix Hospice, and I'm sure they won't mind us talking about it, is if a nurse has a really bad week, she has 5 deaths in a week. That's tough, right? I mean, I don't care what nurse you are in hospice. If you see 5 people that pass away, that's going to be it's tough. And so, can that trigger a message from Dr. Mayo or a social worker internally, or maybe you need some time off, or you need a break, or something like that? So we can see things in different behaviors. Where you take it on the compliance side, if I look at 1,000 starter cares that all are being documented on a hospice patient or a home health patient with the same diagnosis codes, I should be able to predict approximately how many words you're going to type in there, right? The assessment, all those kind of things. If somebody all of a sudden has a really short assessment, what's going on with your documentation? Maybe I need to look at this one more, or maybe they have an extremely long one. What's going on with that? Is this patient really appropriate for home health? So using AI to really assess, not to do the documentation for you, but to work on it, or same thing with employees, to help you onboard, to help make sure you get the right training. You're going out to see a patient that has a really rare disease. Why can't we use AI to know that and predict it, and then give you some more updates on that disease? Here's what's going on. Here's what its signs and symptoms are. We can use it to do lots of different things. One more point that I think is really cool with AI today, and I tested this on my dogs. Hopefully you guys didn't hear my dogs barking in the background. Love my animals.
That's part of the show. What's the dog's name?
Bentley's we have a dog named Bentley who's a Swiss Mountain Dog, and she has seizures. She has.
All Swiss Mountain Dogs are welcome on the Who Cares podcast. Especially Billy.
So Bentley is on like 6 medications. So I said, okay, I'm going to test this with my dogs. I don't want to test it with human. I laid up all the medications in their bottles, took a picture of it, asked GPT to go and summarize these medications. It typed the label off of all the medications. It knew exactly what they were. It did signs and symptoms of each one of the medications, what they should be taken for. And it also did drug-to-drug interactions for me in 9 seconds. So imagine you have Nana that's out there, and there's technologies that are coming up with this today. Nana's out there with 20 or more medications, and I'm a nurse that I got to sit there and put in Coumadin. And I got to go over to her, prednisone. Then I got to go over to this medication, this vitamin. That takes, 2 to 5 minutes per drug that Nana's on. Well, she's on 20 of them. I just spent half an hour doing medications, dropping them up there, taking a picture, securely dropping them into ChatGPT or whatever model they're using, and spitting that medication out and load it right into the EMR. I just saved myself 30 minutes.
Going back to the part about the employees and the workforce and their stress levels and the stuff that they're up against. I mean, there's nobody that's as much of a humanist in the in our movement than you are. Are you buying it? Is this are we going to make our work? Are we going to use these tools to make our caregivers' lives better, or are you skeptical? What are you thinking?
I think it's going to make them better. The documentation is the biggest problem. Everybody I talk to in this industry is it takes too long to document. It's too regulated. We're spending hours. I mean, a starter care is 4 hours. Nobody wants to do a 4-hour starter care. They're really only doing about an hour of care, doing assessment, getting Nana ready, teaching her, doing all those kind of things. They're spending the next 3 hours filling out all these documentation. So I truly believe that our goal should be to do 2-hour starter cares, less than 2-hour starter cares. If we can do that, then I won't have the resistance I have today with nurses that don't want to do starter cares. I don't blame them. 4 hours takes forever. It's just paperwork. I don't want to sit at home at night and do paperwork. And by the way, all that clicking you talked about, we built it. I mean, we're the guys that built the clicking. It's compliant. It's good. It's strong. So I truly believe that AI is going to help us. Ambient listening. I'm not saying it's going to fill out your Oasis for you. You're still going to have to do that, but we can make it a lot easier for us to do the documentation. Comparing notes is really easy. Making sure that we're validating the notes correctly, that we're documenting correctly, that we're checking all the technical reasons that we need to have a patient on home health. All that stuff can be happening in the background with AI. Absolutely. In the next 2 years, this industry changes completely using AI and technology as long as people will adopt it.
It's fascinating. I think we talk a lot about the operational efficiencies that will come from things like documentation, predictive analytics. I had not really heard as much discussion around actually employee satisfaction tools that can help you real time, like, integrate with your HR team and make sure your people are happy before they get to the point of trying to retain or bring people back in. Taking this all the way through to the finish line, so we know how it's helping employees do their jobs better, helping organizations run more smoothly. How is it improving patient care?
Yeah, I would tell you that the big power of like the Metalogics tools that are out there is making sure it's the right care at the right time to the right Nana. There's other tools out there. At Maxwell, we built a couple tools called Nana Connect that use AI as well. And the question, we text Nana every day, Nana, how do you feel today compared to yesterday? That's really important, right? If she's had a fall, she feels better. You can put in all these blood pressure cuffs and scales and these kind of machines like that, temperature thermometers and all that. Those are great. Vital signs give us lots of things. That's why they're called vital signs. But does it tell me how Nana feels? Does it tell me that Nana's sad, lonely, depressed, scared, all those? So grabbing data from Nana and then taking that and then surfacing it to the right caregiver or the right team that says, hey, Nana's feeling bad. Her vital signs are stable, but she feels really bad. She's scared. She's lonely. She's depressed, whatever. Now I can get a social worker out there. Now I can get a nurse out there immediately. So those tools are helping speed up visits as well as making sure we have the right care at the right time. The other one that I think is super important is making sure Nana's in the right care setting. Hospice is an amazing benefit. When you need it, you need it. We save you tons of money. We save you tons of the government's money. And making sure that Nana's in the right care setting at the right time is super important. The worst thing that can happen is Nana goes to hospice too late, right? She goes there for 3 or 4 or 5 days. And so being able to predict that really impacts it as well.
I mean, Tom, the stuff you're hitting on, to me, I mean, they cut across all of care at home, right? Home care and personal care, family caregiving, post acute care and home health, hospice and palliative care. You can just see how these different themes are going to make a big impact on how people can get home. And of course, one of the areas that will become more and more important, I think, is just helping make sure people can go home and they're not unnecessarily hospitalized or needing to be in facilities, and we have other tools that are emerging that are supporting that now. One of the interesting things, I got like kind of a little business question for you that's kind of popped in my head while we're talking, which is, to what extent do you see this future of AI enabled care at home to be about different like new tools and apps and products versus these like generalist massive tools like GPT or something like that? Like, is those competing like business concepts in this tech space? Is it sort of these big models versus like niche tools and products? Also, we have to watch out. I mean, we don't want people popping patient data into their iPhone in the wrong way, just to get an answer. And so we got to caution everybody to make sure they're doing it in the right types of systems and environments for privacy. But that said, where do you see this going? Is it these big powerful tools that the mega companies already own, or are these niche special products, or is it something different? And I'm missing the issue.
Yeah, so it's a great question, and I absolutely believe that there's two answers to this question. I think the big models that so we have a control model, right? So we build our model, we model our data, and so like at Metalogics and other companies that we're working with, we model our data. So we have what we call a control model. It doesn't hallucinate. If you start dumping patient data into the big GPT models, other than like what are these medications and kind of those kind of things, the hallucinations of that, it scares me to death as well, Doc. And that's not the model we want to be in. We're running control models where we're feeding the data in. We're carving, or shaping is the term they use. We're shaping the data appropriately to make sure that when we do get the right answer, we get the right answer, or when we get the answer, we get the right answer. I do think there's two. So those big models is one of the business proposition. The other one is, how do I build apps, or how do I build tools that just simplify a process, just make it easier than me having to go, could I listen to the entire visit and talk with the patient through that and have it transcribe that and help me with not forgetting that Nana had, a fall 2 days ago, or she had a hospitalization, a month ago. Nana's feeding me all this information. I'm asking her all these questions. And as a nurse, I got to figure out how to write all this down while we're having a conversation. That's not really great when you're trying to interview a patient and you're trying to treat a patient and you're doing wound care and all these kind of things. Having a conversation with Nana and have something where it's listening to her and transcribing that for you in a secure, controlled environment is huge. But I will think you see a lot of apps that are going to pop up across the industry, and they already are. They're popping up, doing ambient listening, doing validation and checks and controls for compliance and regulations. And there's great models around these, and it's not expensive. Dumping your medical record into ChatGPT is probably not the right thing to do.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't recommend that unless you like your name in the newspaper and you like, to show up in court with attorneys, the other losing your license. That's something people have to watch out for. But obviously the tools are powerful. Um, another area we haven't talked about that I'd love your take on is um, where does remote monitoring and also sort of just interaction, like companionship or virtual agent and that type of those type of aspects, like not what we've talked a lot about is what happens in the home and what the care team is doing behind the scenes, but what about sort of that ongoing touches with either monitoring or virtual agent type of interactions? Where do you see that aspect of care at home going?
Yeah, and there's a few companies that have popped up that I've looked at and invested in zero of them yet, but I'm continuing to watch them. Just um, monitors in the home. I mean, things that we need to know. Does Nana go to the bathroom more often now than she did before? Does Nana get out of bed more often than she did before? Does Nana use her refrigerator? Does she have running water? Does she have food? Does she have electricity? What's the temperature in the house? I mean, and if you're going to someone's house and it's 90 degrees all the time and it's hot, and like if you live in Scottsdale where I live, and you go into your house, it's 90 degrees. That's not healthy for Nana. So there's things like that are popping up all over the place now. We're getting so much data. We have to figure out how, and this is where AI really comes in. How do I not have to look at all the data, but how does the AI surface the right patient for me to go see? But think about all the social determinants. Does Nana have food? Does she have running water? The government provides amazing benefits for Meals on Wheels or like companies like GA Foods and these guys that'll send food to. Nana can get 18 weeks of Salisbury steak. By the way, that's the number one requested food. I don't know why, but 18 weeks of Salisbury steak, and for no cost. Medicaid pays for that, and so how do we use these tools like that to monitor patients, to know that they're moving, to know that they're getting up, to know that they're doing their exercises, to know they're changing rooms? If they're just laying in bed doing nothing, then they're not going to be as healthy. And so, can we use these tools to help prompt us to go? We might want to send an aide out there more often, or a social worker, or there's or maybe it's the opposite of that. They're never moving. Maybe that could be a catastrophic thing. So I do believe that it's there. The amount of data that we're getting, we have to use AI or some way because everybody's going to have tons of data. How do we figure out which one of these we prioritize and who we go see? We can't go see them all. So I do believe that there's companies that are surfacing that are, and Medicare Advantage loves that, right? They want to pay for that because they want to be able to keep their patient out of the hospital. Nobody wants to go to the hospital. Not that hospitals are bad, but you don't want to have to go to the hospital if you can keep from.
If you don't have to go, you don't want to go. I mean, that's the bottom line.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Feels like we have a lot of opportunities available to providers in the current state of play, like whether or not they're adopting them right now, these things are happening and they'll only continue to grow and evolve. If you were thinking practically, talking to a provider who's like, I have no idea where to start, I have my EMR, but that's just about it. Like, what technology should I start with? How do I prepare myself for what's to come? Like, if I don't prepare now, where will I fall behind? What advice would you start with if you're looking at taking the next step to optimize your integration of technology and specifically AI?
Oh, what a great question. Thank you for asking that one. I would start with current assessment of where I'm at today. So how well are we using our AMR? How often are we doing our documentation in the home next to Nana in the bed? Those kind of things. And then I would slowly say, okay, how do we adopt things that are going to save us time? We're very blessed in this industry. We probably have more patients than we have caregivers. We just got to figure out how to do it right and quickly. We don't want to burn our nurses out. I read an article yesterday that 55% of all nurses won't be a nurse in 2029. They'll be retired from it. That's scary. When you start really looking at if that article's right, and you don't have to quote me on the article, but if that article's right, it scares me to death. And so we have to become more efficient and make sure that we're the nurses that we're providing care are going to the right homes and doing it to the right people that we need to.
Nursing is one of the core topics of another episode, and we couldn't agree with you more that the life and the circumstances and the sustainability of nursing is like at the forefront of whether or not we're going to succeed or not with our care at home movement. So I'm glad you mentioned that, and I agree with you. If anybody is trying to think about, how would I look at new technologies, what would be the first thing to look at? Nursing and aides, personal care workers. They're everything, right? The aides and personal care workers mean everything. Those have to be places you would start. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it's just what you were saying resonated with me.
Yeah, it's really bizarre to me how patients fall in love with their aide. I mean, it's really not bizarre. It's the person that's there with them the most. But when I was in investor in agencies, when we get letters from patients, thanking us, it's always the aide. The aides always get the letters. Thank you so much. My aide's the greatest. We built a technology called Man of Bereavement, and on hospice patients, we get more responses back around the aide. Our aide was so amazing. It's amazing. It warms your heart. The aides are super important. Nurses are absolutely important. Social workers, chaplains. I mean, these people that are doing this stuff in home care and hospice are all angels. But we have to make their lives easier. And if we don't make their lives easier, if we're making it harder and we require them, to hit more productivity, to go see more patients, do more documentation, the government regulations are coming in to try to, make it harder. How do we make their lives easier? And so I would start there. That's really what's going to help you grow and sustain your organization is how do you optimize what you're doing in your EMR and how do you use these AI tools to make life a little bit easier for that clinician or caregiver.
Now, Tom, there's another angle on this. We're not going to let you off the hook without a harder question here. So, of course, making these folks' lives easier is paramount. Is there a moment when these technologies like replace the need for a nurse or an aide, or is it going to be that powerful that you just don't need a professional anymore? How do you see that all playing out?
It's a great question. My belief is that we'll always need healthcare workers to go in and assess patients from an emotional, spiritual. Can a robot do wound care? Probably not. I don't ever see that. They have robots that do CPR now, which is kind of interesting. Way back when I was in the ER and in praxis medicine, we had robots that would do chest compressions, which is pretty crazy, or machines. I don't think you'll see that, but I think there are in 5 years there will be robots in houses. They'll be cost effective and cheap enough to help monitor patients. That will be there to help. And they're talking about doing dishes and vacuum and all those kind of things. Laundry. I can't wait to have a robot to do my laundry because it's my least favorite thing to do. I'll buy that one if someone has it out there. Call me. I think there will be some kind of a machine that will help us keep patients safer, healthier, better. People are living longer, so we're going to need those kind of things because we don't have enough nurses. I always think you'll need nurses, you'll need aides, you'll need people out there that are can connect emotionally. I don't want to hang out with a robot every day. I want to hang out with a human or a dog. So I don't think that we're going to get to that. Yeah, Bailey's the winner, but I don't think you want to get to that point. But I think we can make their lives more efficient, easier, better, for sure.
So we've got robots in 5 years. What else do you see if you're future forecasting? Let's say like go to 10-year time horizon. Is there anything, if you had to make a prediction about what AI and home care would look like, that you can say? We won't hold you to it, but just for fun.
I think it'll be way more. We'll be way more efficient. We'll be able to document a lot quicker, easier, faster. I mean, the government's already looking at ways to change that. We'll be way more compliant. I mean, if you have ambient listening and documentation, there won't be all this fraud that's in the industry that, people that are seeing fake patients and those kind of things. That all goes away, right? Because we'll know exactly that you saw the patient. You can look the patient in the eyes. You can scan their eyes, whatever we decide in 10 years, we'll know that that's a real human that's sitting there because we'll be able to figure that out. So I think it'll be way more efficient. I don't foresee. I mean, I could see an assisted living facility that has 50 patients in it, that has robots running around in 5 to 7 years, maybe 10 years. that are helping take care of everybody and making sure everybody's safe. And I mean, they work night and day. They don't ever get sick. They don't get COVID. They don't take breaks. They don't smoke cigarettes, none of that stuff. So it's, I think it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not scared of technology, at all, but I do worry that we forget that, you still need to have a human interaction. You still need a hug every now and then. And there's nothing better than a hug, right? And the robot can't give you a good hug.
No doubt, Tom. I mean, man, oh man, you failed retirement miserably. Okay, as I think about this conversation, and it started out with you talking about retirement, and then I mean, you've changed the world like 3 times over since you retired. So I mean, you've succeeded at everything other than becoming a fisherman. I mean, it's unbelievable. And with our National Alliance for Care at Home, we very much want to play a constructive role in this bright future that you're saying, so that we get the good stuff, like we get the better care and workforce, that's feels that they're supported and have the tools they need, and that we are able to navigate some of these, shortages, and that that families get a better deal and people can age successfully. So we're gonna try to contribute and work with all providers on the education and advocacy front, and the technology companies, and really try to make an impact in this bright future. I don't know if you have any advice for us from an alliance standpoint in terms of this topic.
Yeah, I think it's amazing, Dr. Landers. I'm so glad you're, named the president and you put the two organizations together. And as a guy that represents 8 different, home health and hospice software vendors, I think it's the right move. The industry needs you to be super successful. We need you to push hard. We need everybody to get involved. We need to put our dollars behind this. I think Dr. Oz and Kennedy and the guys that are in charge of the HHS, I think it's super important that they see how valuable home health and hospice is, and I think they do, and home care. Nobody wants to go to the hospital. They want to be home with their dog, with their remote control, with their family, their things. They don't want to be in a hospital bed. And so if we can figure this out and solve it and continue to advance our technologies and continue to advance our processes and our advocacy and all that, and make sure that they recognize it, I think it's the right thing.
I just have to say that we did not pay him to say that about Dr. Landers, but he is absolutely right in leading the alliance forward. But I think where you ended with, it's at the heart of what we do. I think the whole alliance team, really the community feels that way too. And it's what makes this work so special and what keeps us pushing forward, even 20 years or however many years after retirement, building new companies and launching new products. So yeah, thank you for all that you've contributed to the community. It obviously has made a huge impact and will continue to do so.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. We can't thank you enough, and your enthusiasm and endorsement, it means so much. We it's humbling because we've just got a lot of work to do. We've got so much to do, and the implications are very serious, and we're going to keep at it.
Thank you for what you do. It's awesome.
Thanks for joining us today. Any final words for anyone tuning in about kind of what to expect in the future, or any words of advice?
Let's keep hustling. It's outwork everybody else. I mean, people ask me all the time, like, "Wow, you've been a couple of really successful moves. What's the one inspiration quote?" I love to hustle. I work harder than most people. I play a lot of golf too, so don't ever underdo that. I think you have to take your time to play golf, but I think you got to out hustle everybody else. You work hard, you study, you focus, and this is an amazing industry we're in. There's lots of people that need us. We need us to win. We need the alliance to win. We absolutely do. And if you just sit back and think about the number of people that we take care of every day through the technologies we build or through the people that we know or the agencies we own, I mean, it's amazing what we do every day. And so I'm super happy and blessed to be a part of it. And I always have to sit back and think that thank you, Steve Myers, for throwing my name to April Anthony, because this all started when that happened. And she took a chance on a dumb guy from Amarillo, Texas, and we've made a lot of success together. So really happy.
Love it. What a success story! Incredible.
All right, thanks for joining us.
You bet. Thank you for having me.
There seems to be a lot of disbelief in the AI care space. We're going to do some more real or not type of questions. So I'm going to read off some scenarios, and we're going to talk about whether or not we would trust the AI in that scenario or if we should steer away from it. So scenario number 1, AI schedules your home health visits based on your health history and preferences. Do we trust it or not?
I'm getting there. I trust that the AI is going to could play a great role in narrowing down the frequency of visits needed and the types of visits needed. I think that somebody still is going to have to oversee that right now, but maybe we get to a time when it's not so necessary.
I'm on that same page. Okay, number 2, an AI-powered system detects early signs of heart failure and recommends an immediate hospital visit, but no human doctor has reviewed it. Trust it or not?
Yeah, the risk assessment, I think, is getting there. Okay, in terms of that decision to go straight to the hospital, we need a doctor or nurse involved with that conversation right now.
Yes, I am also in agreement there, especially before we make that costly to the patient and costly to the system emergency visit. Okay, scenario number 3. Your home health aide is wearing AI-powered smart glasses that scan your vitals and provide real-time recommendations. Do we trust that or not?
Wow. I think that it's going to... I'm not really good at giving straight answers. I don't know if you noticed this.
That's the game.
It's going to depend on probably the training and the support that aide has. So, I think there's things like that could be part of the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've said this in different ways, but it's like one of the sources. The doctor may use that input as one of the sources to make a decision, but it's not going to be the directive for the patient or caregiver. And like you said, it depends on that patient's health literacy, if they can even interpret that information.
Well, and that same technology, by the way, that's, scanning or, visual, could also be bringing, information or support, even live support to somebody on the front lines. Like, that's one of the things I'm really interested in is, like, how do you sort of upskill people on the front lines, not just with AI, but just even virtual support? Like, how do we, get a, for example, like a nurse that is doing wound care in the field, but they need the help of a wound care specialist nurse who really is an expert in that area. How do we get that type of, virtual support in to back up our frontline folks?
Yeah, and that seems like something we can work on right now. Like, we have the tools to do that. Okay, last scenario. AI monitors your daily activity through smart home sensors and alerts your caregiver when something seems off. Do we trust it or not?
I trust it. I can tell you, I don't know if my dad trusts it or or everybody because there's this, and this is one of the topics, right? Is that with monitoring and the AI is how will our elders feel about the sense of quote unquote being watched? I think that smart home technology and monitoring to identify potential changes in routines, safety situations is really important.
Yeah, I think the operative word in that scenario is off. I like that because it's not saying the AI is telling you to do this or to do that. It's simply telling you that something is worth looking further at. And I think that is like the key space right now where we should feel comfortable. We have the tools to know, based on the predictive analytics and the algorithms that we have in place, is this straying from the norm? Is this right where it needs to be? And if it is straying from the norm, then that's when we can take a closer look and get that physician support.
For sure. And it may not even be physicians. This might be, somebody needs, is not eating and they need, coaching or support with meals or, things of that matter. I think one of the things we haven't talked a lot about is when we talk about personal care at home. A lot of people, their only way to get personal care aids at home is to purchase the care, private pay. It's very expensive. And it's often hourly, like you buy, a certain number of hours of home health aid services, and, people can only afford so much. And I think one of the questions is, are there scenarios where if we have wraparound support in the home, like what you're talking about, that type of technology, can that basically make it safe in between periods of aid visits that a person can get through the week, say with, hypothetically, 20 hours of aid services with family caregiving support and some technological monitoring in different times to bridge certain gaps. Will that make the ability to stay at home possible and affordable?
Yeah. That's interesting. I feel like we already know how to triage the right level of need. So you have remote monitoring when it's the lowest level of need, and then maybe something's alerted and we bring in a telehealth visit, and then it gets to the point where we need an in-person visit, and we can make sure we're using our workforce to the best of our ability so that they're not overworked, but that the patient is getting the highest quality support still and not having to cut corners. So that's a great point. Any other final thoughts on AI and home care? I mean, are you worried? Are you excited? What's your overarching theme as we close out this episode?
Yeah, I say buckle up. I think things are going to keep moving fast. I mean, the technology and innovation, it's moving faster than we can even keep up with. I wouldn't be surprised if right now somebody's doing something new that we haven't heard about and haven't seen yet. And I'm optimistic. I think that there's just so much that can be done to improve independence, like we said, make the workforce, their lives more sustainable and enjoyable. And so let's keep our eyes open and hope to see some things that really improve care.
Sounds great. And we can just hope that this episode isn't out of date by the time we release it. So
No
technology
question
moves
about
fast.
that.
AI is a powerful tool, but its impact depends on the people who use it. The future of home-based care will be shaped by bold leadership and thoughtful decisions. Let's make sure we use technology to enhance care, not replace it. Care at home will impact us all. Let's shape the future together.